morning, students. Today's topic is on chelating agents. So, what are chelating agents? They are used in the treatment of heavy metal poisoning. So, first, before going into the topic of chelating agents, let us discuss what are the heavy metals and how do they affect the body, what is the poisoning caused by them. So, here are some of the heavy metals. But in this chapter, we will be talking about arsenic, lead, mercury, iron, and copper poisoning. 5 heavy metals, because these are most common amongst the all the types of heavy metals. This type of poisoning caused by mercury, lead, arsenic, iron, and copper is more common. So, introduction. So, normally we know that poisoning, it can occur either because of suicidal, homicidal, or accidental and occupational reasons. But here, poisoning due to heavy metals, it is mainly because of occupational reason. Okay, how do they exert their toxic effects? So they combine with the functional groups of vital enzymes. So these functional groups are also called as ligands. So they combine with the functional groups of the vital enzymes and they inactivate them. So here, what do they do here? They interfere with the normal functioning of the enzymes. Okay. Then what do we do when there is a poisoning because of a heavy metal? You use a chelating agent. So these are drugs used to treat the heavy metal poisoning, and they act by a process called chelation. So chelation is the process by which the organic compounds combine with the metals to form relatively stable non-ionized ring complexes. So the chelating agent, it combines with the heavy metal and forms a stable complex. So how do they do that? So these chelating agents, they contain polar groups like SH, OH, NH2 or COOH, with which they can bind the metal ion. In other words, they compete with the ligands of the enzymes in the body with which the heavy metal was binding and inactivating the enzyme. So these chelating agents, they compete with the ligands of the enzymes in the body, and with their polar groups, they bind with the metal ion. So this is the metallic ion, this is the chelating agent. So this chelating agent, it binds with the metallic ion and prevents the binding of the heavy metal to the enzymes in the body. So here you can see the mechanism of action. The drug is the chelating agent. It combines with the metallic ions and it forms stable, non-toxic, water-soluble complex, and this is eliminated by the kidney. Some of the different, chelating agents which are important and which we will talk about in this chapter are dimercaprol, that is, we also call it as BAL, that is British anti-Lewicide. Then we have dimercaptosuccinic acid. If you can remember this, remember it as DMSA or Succimer. And the next one is dimercaptopropane sulfonic acid. Remember it as DMPS. It is also called as unithiol. Then we have calcium disodium edetate, then D-pencilamine, desferrioxamine, and deferriprone. So all these are the chelating agents which are useful in the common poisoning caused by heavy metals. So let us discuss the important heavy metal poisoning that occur, that is mercury, lead, arsenic, and iron. So coming to the first one, that is mercury. Mercury exists in 3 chemical forms. So one is elemental mercury, then inorganic mercury salts, and organic mercury salts. So elemental mercury here. So this is relatively less toxic. Okay, this is commonly, it is used in dental amalgams and in Ayurvedic medicines. Then inorganic mercury salts are used rarely, so toxicity by them is rare. Then we have organic mercury salts. So this is more common and it is more toxic. So this is commonly seen when we eat fish contaminated with methyl mercury. So what are the toxic effects caused by them? Elemental mercury, as such, it is less absorbed from the GIT and toxicity is less. But when inhaled as a vapor, it causes the respiratory symptoms like chest pain, shortness of breath, and there will be gastroenteritis, nausea, vomiting, tremors, kidney and CNS damage. Then coming to inorganic salts, and it differs in acute poisoning, chronic poisoning. Acute poisoning, it causes severe hemorrhagic gastroenteritis and acute tubular necrosis. So hemorrhagic gastroenteritis and acute tubular necrosis. Then we have chronic poisoning caused by inorganic salts, that is gingival stomatitis and gastroenteritis, followed much later with renal toxicity. But the poisoning caused by inorganic salts is rare. Then organic salts. So this is more common and it occurs by eating fish which is contaminated with methyl mercury. First, it was noticed in Japan in a fishing community in a bay called Minamata. So it is also called as Minamata disease. It also results from eating flour grounded from food grain preserved with methyl mercury. So the food grain is preserved with methyl mercury and then later you ground it to form flour. When you eat that, it results in mercury poisoning. Then consumption leads to chronic toxicity. Chronic toxicity, it leads to birth defects and CNS toxicity with behavioral changes called erethism. See, this erethism, it comprises of irritability, depression, then personality changes. So all these occur. Then coming to the next poisoning, that is lead poisoning. See, lead poisoning, it is because of, most common reason is chronic exposure through diet. So that we see in Asian and Middle East countries where people use utensils which is made of lead for cooking, and also lead is used in plumbing, water pipes. So that results in contamination of the water we want to drink. Then lead-based paint. So the paints, they are composed of lead. So that tastes sweet in nature. So kids, they prefer eating that a wall paint by breaking it into chips. So that is what we call a condition called pica. So lead-based paints which are sweet in taste. So children, they like that and eat that in a small form of small chips. Then organic lead added to gasoline in underdeveloped countries, it is added to gasoline and that is readily absorbed through skin and lungs. And then we have occupational exposure, like in lead acid battery workers and in mine workers, they are exposed to lead. So that is an occupational exposure. Then toxic effects, acute and chronic. Acute is rare except in industrial exposure and in children exhibiting pica. So inhibition of heme biosynthesis and urinary excretion of porphyrins. So here, whenever you see anemia together with porphyrins in the urine, so that confirms the diagnosis as lead poisoning. Then other features are abdominal colic, reversible and irreversible tubular damage, neuropathies and encephalopathy. See, most 25% of people who develop encephalopathy, they die, whereas some 40 to 50% they develop neurological deficits and they survive. Then chronic presentation will be microcytic hypochromic anemia, that leads to lethargy and weakness. Then peripheral neuropathy characterized by wrist drop and foot drop. Then we have tremors, anorexia, weight loss and GIT disturbances. In children, there is growth retardation, neurocognitive deficits and loss in the IQ. Then coming to arsenic poisoning. See, this arsenic exists in its trivalent and pentavalent forms and also it occurs as hydride gas. So where it is used commercially in the preparation of semiconductors, glass and veterinary pharmaceuticals. It is also released during burning of hard coke. Then it is also found in the subsoil in regions of West Bengal and Bangladesh. And it is also released during refinement and processing of certain metals. So it is an environmental as well as an occupational hazard. So this arsenic, it is like more of carcinogenic in nature. It leads to skin and lung cancer. Then acute toxic effects are gastroenteritis, laryngitis, dehydration and shock. One characteristic feature of arsenic poisoning is there is a garlicky odority of breath and of the stool. So that is indicative of arsenic poisoning. Then chronic is characterized by skin irritation and color change, hair loss, nausea, GIT disturbances, bone marrow depression, and anemia. And it also causes massive hemoglobinuria and acute renal failure. Then iron poisoning. So these hematinics are available as over-the-counter preparation. So OTC is over-the-counter preparation. So excessive exposure, especially by children when they accidentally consume the tablets, that can lead to significant iron toxicity. So this iron toxicity, again, it can be acute or chronic. Acute is that what we see in children when they accidentally consume a number of tablets. Then symptoms start with vomiting and diarrhea. So in vomiting, you find blood, and also the stools are also bloody. Then acidosis, so there that results in dehydration. So because of dehydration, there will be acidosis and shock that occur a few hours later. The later phase is convulsions, cardiovascular collapse, and coma ensue. Then chronic exposure, it is common in people having genetic predisposition. So they absorb excessive amounts of iron that they take orally because of their genetic predisposition. So then you see chronic toxic effects. It is characterized by hemosiderin accumulation in the liver and spleen. So this is the storage form of iron that leads to hemochromatosis. So what are the chelating? So this is the poisoning, important heavy metals that commonly cause poison. That is mercury, iron, lead, and arsenic. Then coming to the chelating agents which are used in the management of heavy metal poisoning are dimercaprol. See, dimercaprol, it is also called as BAL. That is a British anti-Lewisite, because it was found as an antidote to arsenic war gas and Lewisite. So that was used during World War II. It is also known as British anti-Lewisite. It is oily, pungent smelling and viscous fluid. It is administered mostly by IM route in the oil-based formulation. So here the polar group in dimercaprol is SH group. So the SH ligand of dimercaprol, it competes with the SH groups of the enzymes for the heavy metal. Okay. So that dimercaprol, two molecules of dimercaprol, they bind with one metal ion that results in formation of a complex that is stable and it is excreted in the urine. So you have to see here that the urine is alkaline, because if it is alkaline, the complex will be stable and prevents the dissociation and reabsorption of the metal ion. So what is the recommended dose schedule here? 5 mg per kg IM stat, followed by 2 to 3 mg per kg 8 hourly for 2 days, and then once a day for 10 days. So commonly it is used for the treatment of arsenic and mercury poisoning. See, almost all the chelating agents are used in all the different types of poisoning, but there are some specific chelating agents for specific poisoning. Like that, dimercaprol is specific for mercury and arsenic poisoning. Okay, but it can also be used in lead poisoning along with calcium disodium editate. So here in lead poisoning, calcium disodium editate is the specific chelating agent. So here you can use BAL as an adjuvant. Then also in copper poisoning, the specific chelating agent we use is penicillamine. There also you can combine BAL with penicillamine, and it is used in the treatment of Wilson's disease. Contraindicated in iron and cadmium poisoning, because the complex formed by BAL and iron or cadmium, that complex itself is toxic. So it is contraindicated in iron and cadmium poisoning. Then adverse effects are frequent, dose related, but generally not damaging. Then we can see there is hypertension, tachycardia, tingling and burning sensations, inflammation of the mucous membranes, sweating, cramps, headache, and anxiety. Coming to the next one, that is DMSA, or also called as Succimer. It is, we have two dimercaprol analogs. So one is Succimer and the next is Unithiol. Both of them are dimercaprol analogs. Okay. So here Succimer, if you compare with dimercaprol, it is less toxic, more orally effective, and it is water soluble. So this is mainly indicated in the treatment of lead intoxication, especially in kids, and it is specific for lead intoxication. See, BAL was used in mercury and arsenic poisoning. Specific indication was that. But here, though Succimer is a dimercaprol analog, its specific indication is in lead intoxication, and this need not be combined with calcium disodium editate. See, BAL was combined with calcium disodium editate for lead poisoning. Here, Succimer need not be given as an adjuvant along with calcium disodium edetate, but it can be alone used for lead intoxication. So when you're using, the dose will be 10 mg per kg every 8 hours for 5 days, followed by 10 mg per kg every 12 hours for 14 days. Okay. Then it is also used for mercury poisoning. It prevents the accumulation of mercury in the brain and kidney. Then side effects are nausea, anorexia, loose motions, occasionally rashes and elevation of liver enzymes. This is another dimercaprol analog. This is also called as unithiol. It is water soluble and less toxic. It can be administered orally as well as through IV route. It is used for severe acute poisoning by mercury and arsenic. So here it is again used like balm for mercury and arsenic. It is also effective in lead poisoning. Okay. So remember that balm, Succimer and unithiol, they are used for mercury and arsenic poisoning and also in lead poisoning. But for Succimer, it is specific for lead poisoning. Then dose of unithiol is 3 to 5 mg per kg 4 hourly by IV route in 20 minutes. Then adverse effects are low except for mild self-limited urticaria. When you give it by rapid IV infusion, that results in hypertension, okay, and vasodilatation. So vasodilatation, because of that, there will be hypertension. The next one is calcium disodium edetate. Okay, it's also called as edetate calcium disodium and also called as calcium disodium edetate. See, this is obtained from the parent compound ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid. So it is a disodium salt of EDTA. So EDTA is a potent chelator of calcium. So if you take the parent compound EDTA, ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid, it is a potent chelator of calcium. So that results in a hypocalcemia in the body. So to avoid that, we use calcium disodium edetate for many divalent and trivalent metal poisonings. So it is a highly polar compound, so absorption through GIT will be less and it is given parenterally through slow IV route. IM route is painful, so we prefer giving it through IV route. Then it is rapidly excreted through glomerular filtration. It has a very high affinity for lead. Most important use is in lead poisoning. In severe lead poisoning, see, it can be given alone in lead poisoning, but in severe lead poisoning, it is given in combination with dimercaprol. Then we have the dose will be 50 to 75 mg per kg per day of calcium disodium edetate by slow IV injection 6 hourly and dimercaprol 4 mg per kg IM every 4 hours for 3 to 5 days. Then adverse effects are, it does not produce tetany and it is relatively safe. Then kidney change with proximal tubular necrosis. So that results in nephrotoxicity. Kidney damage with proximal tubular necrosis, but it is dose related. Then an acute febrile reaction with chills, body ache, malaise, tiredness occurs in some individuals. Then we have D-penicillamine. So D-penicillamine, it is chemically, it is dimethylcysteine. It is a water-soluble degradation product of penicillin. Then D-isomer is relatively more safer when compared to the L-isomer. Now this is specific in copper poisoning. Okay, so it has a strong copper chelating property and it was used in Wilson's disease. It selectively chelates copper, then lead, zinc, and mercury. Uses are, the most important use is Wilson's disease. See, Wilson's disease is a genetic disorder where there is deficiency of ceruloplasmin in the body. This ceruloplasmin, it binds the excess copper in the body and excretes it from the body. So when there is deficiency of ceruloplasmin, that results in Wilson's disease. So here we use penicillamine, which binds the excess copper in the body. Then it is also used in mercury poisoning as an alternate to BAL and DMSA. Then it is also used as adjuvant to calcium disodium edetate in lead poisoning, but DMSA is preferred, that is Succimer. Then it is also used in cystinuria. Cystinuria, it binds with the cysteine, forms a complex and prevents its precipitation in the urinary tract. Then we have scleroderma. It benefits by increasing the soluble collagen and it is also used as a disease modifying agent in rheumatoid arthritis, but now it is replaced by safer drugs. So adverse effects are short-term administration does not cause much problem, but long-term it results in hypersensitivity, proteinuria, leukopenia, aplastic anemia, and B6 deficiency. Then dose will be 0.5 to 1 gram orally twice daily. The next one is tryntine. It is also used in copper poisoning and it is used in Wilson's disease. The dose is 1 gram BD on empty stomach. So when do you use tryntine? When there is toxicity to penicillamine and it is less toxic than penicillamine. So you can prefer it in place of penicillamine for copper poisoning. Adverse effect is iron deficiency. So you have to supplement with iron therapy before and during therapy with tryntine. And in animal studies, it's been found to be teratogenic. The last chelating agent, desferrioxamine. This ferrioxamine, it is isolated from Streptomyces pilosus. It is degraded chemically to obtain deferoxamine or desferrioxamine. Both are same, deferoxamine or desferrioxamine. So that has a high affinity for iron. See, 1 gram is capable of chelating nearly 85 mg of elemental iron. So very little is absorbed orally. So the preferred route of administration will be either IM or IV. So for serious toxicity, it is given by IV infusion, 10 to 15 mg per kg per hour. And in moderate cases, it can be administered intramuscularly, 50 mg per kg. Then for chronic intoxication, an IM dose of 0.5 to 1 gram per day is recommended. It is also given with hemodialysis in treatment of aluminium toxicity in renal failure. See, one unique feature of desferrioxamine is that it binds only to the storage forms of iron and removes the excess iron like ferritin, hemosiderin and transferrin, but not to hemoglobin. It does not remove the iron from hemoglobin. So that is one unique feature. And adverse effects are hypertensive shock due to histamine release. So histamine is released that results in vasodilatation and hypertensive shock. Then abdominal pain, muscle cramps, fever, dysuria and diarrhea. Then ARDS. ARDS is acute respiratory distress syndrome. It can lead to ARDS. Then last one we have deferriprone. It is used in transfusion siderosis. So transfusion siderosis means if you see kids with thalassemia major, so that is a lifelong disorder. So there they need multiple blood transfusions. So that results in iron overload in the body because they're getting multiple blood transfusion. That is what we call it is used in transfusion siderosis. So excess iron in the body because of transfusion. Then it is also indicated in iron poisoning and also in iron load in liver cirrhosis. Side effects are anorexia, vomiting, altered taste, joint pain, reversible neutropenia, rarely agranulocytosis, zinc depletion. Long-term safety is not known and dose is 50 to 100 mg per kg. So we have seen here the different chelating agents. So once again we will see which chelating agent is preferred for which heavy metal poisoning. So first one is BAL. That is British anti-Lewisite or dimercaprol. So that is mainly preferred in mercury poisoning. It can also be given in lead poisoning along with calcium disodium additive. Then succinate is mainly indicated for lead and it can also be used for mercury poisoning. Then unithiol, it is used for mainly mercury and arsenic poisoning like BAL, and it is also used in lead intoxication. Then the next one is EDTA, calcium disodium aditate. Specifically, it is indicated for lead poisoning. In severe lead poisoning, you can combine it with BAL. So then the next one we have is D-penicillamine. Okay, D-penicillamine. So this is commonly used in copper poisoning. Okay, but it can also be used in mercury poisoning, then also in lead poisoning, and it has various uses like in cystinuria, scleroderma, and arthritis. It is also used as a disease-modifying drug in rheumatoid arthritis. Then the next one is tryntine, which we can use when there is toxicity to penicillin. Then the last one, desferrioxamine or deferoxamine. So this is used in iron overload in the body. Then we have one more, deferriprone. It is mainly indicated in transfusion siderosis. So this is about, in short, about the heavy metal poisoning and chelating agents. Please go through the chapter, read it again after this session is over. and prepare well for your assessment, weekly assessment, as well as for internal exam. Thank you.